Who? They what? They are? This just in. Apple is being sued for the failed rollout of Apple Intelligence. Now, without proper context, this isn't really all that notable, as large corporations are sued all of the time for everything. But this is different because a variety of insider info has come out to suggest that not only was there infighting between Apple's own executives about AI, but many of the demos shown back at WWDC last year were outright fabrications. They weren't shown on working devices and reportedly even surprised many of Apple's own engineers who had never created working versions before Apple showed them to the world as coming soon. If true, and as you'll find out in this video, I think the evidence is pretty damning, this serves as a massive hit to the Apple Intelligence rollout, but more importantly, permanently tarnishes Apple's stellar reputation when it comes to trusting about just about anything they say on unreleased products going forward. But first, I think it's worthwhile to look at the timeline of how we got to this cataclysmic explosion, because Siri has frankly been a problem since day one. The starting point isn't really straightforward because Siri wasn't originally an Apple creation. It was an acquisition. Steve Jobs spearheads Apple's $200 million purchase of the voice assistant in early 2010 and works closely with Scott Forstall to refine the product before its iPhone 4S debut in October 2011, coincidentally the same month that Jobs passes away. Forstall, left to manage alone, sees Siri's potential, but delegates leadership to Richard Williamson, one of his longtime go-tos. Now, this torch passing is mainly because Forstall himself has his hands full with the yet-to-launch Apple Maps project. And it has been widely reported over many years that Williamson comes in from day one making a number of decisions that pretty much everybody on the Siri team disagrees with, including a plan to upgrade Siri's capabilities only once annually, in lockstep with iOS releases. Now, though there are attempts made by many people within the organization to assist Williamson in leading the Siri team, each one is ultimately canned by either Williamson or Forstall until Tim Cook comes in and fires both of them following the disastrous launch of Apple Maps in 2012. I guess Forstall resigned. Forcibly. Man, talk about dysfunction, right? While some companies are tripping over themselves trying to figure out AI, others are actually putting it to practical use in ways that, help. Which brings me to something that I've actually been genuinely impressed with lately, the Roborock Saros Z70, today's sponsor. This isn't just another robot vacuum. Why? Well, because of this wild AI-powered mechanical arm that they call OmniGrip. Seriously, instead of just bumping into that sock you left on the floor or giving up, the Saros Z70 can actually see it with its advanced AI and sensors, and then use the arm to gently move it aside and then clean underneath. It can even recognize certain items like crumpled tissues or shoes and tidy them up into designated spots that you define in the app. It's like having an extra tiny, very neat little hand around the house. And it's smart in other ways too. It uses advanced 3D sensors and AI, they call it StarSight, to navigate precisely, avoiding smaller obstacles that other vacs might chew on, and it even works effectively in the dark. Plus, the whole thing is ultra thin, like just under 8 centimeters, so it actually gets under beds and couches where the dust bunnies gather. Of course, it still has to be a great vacuum and mop, and luckily it is. I mean, we're talking 22,000 pascals of suction power, which is a lot, and a clever anti-tangle brush for dealing with hair. The dock, this thing is nuts too. I mean, it does everything. It empties the dustbin, refills the water, dispenses detergent, washes the mops with hot water up to 80 degrees Celsius, and then dries them with heated air to keep things fresh. It's about as hands-off as you can really get. So, yeah. While Apple's figuring out its AI path, Roborock is already shipping stuff like the Saros Z70 that feels genuinely helpful and, dare I say, intelligent. It's entering its open sale period now, so if you want to see a practical home AI companion, what that might actually look like, well, you definitely need to check out the link in the video description below. Okay, so both Forstall and Williamson, they're out. And Apple brings in Bill Stassier, a very well-known search guru from Amazon, hoping that, well, maybe he can fix things. Instead, his heavy focus on search clashes with the original AI vision of the product and leads to messy integrations and, frankly, internal turf wars between the old Siri team, the original, and newer acquisition teams that were made by Apple to enhance search. Below Stassier, leadership allegedly remains mostly unchanged and is frankly chaotic, with a number of unqualified managers reportedly causing even more internal feuding. Surprise, surprise, this drives away key talent between critical teams like speech recognition and natural language processing. But crucially, the plan to open Siri up to developers, it's been stalled for years, launching finally in 2016 as a very weak Siri kit. But frankly, it's too little too late. Both Amazon and Google have completely leapfrogged Apple by this point in the smart assistant and smart home race. Early 2018 sees the, well, I can make a smart speaker thingy too, launch of the original HomePod, but reviews, including mine, largely pan the software experience on an otherwise impressive, though incredibly expensive, piece of hardware. The voice assistant, which is of course the primary way to interface with the speaker, has not really improved in significant ways since 2011. And we all know the story. Sales of the HomePod are abysmal. And this near decade-long train wreck finally pushes Tim Cook to drastic action. And that is the poaching of Google's head of search and AI, Giannandrea, or JG as he's known. This isn't just filing a vacancy, and this isn't just some guy. JG is a huge name and has handed keys to Apple's entire machine learning and AI strategy, becoming one of the few executives to report directly to Tim Cook. This serves as a massive signal that Apple has finally admitted it has a serious AI problem and needs a top-tier leader nabbed directly from the competition. But, I mean, it's now 2025. So what's happened in the last 7 years? Well, most might point their fingers towards a little curveball named ChatGPT, and make no mistake, the modern LLM certainly threw a wrench into the gears of Apple's and JG's reign. But things were dysfunctional far before that, according to a new earth-shattering report from The Information. The report alleges that a major source of the dysfunction boils down to the relationship, or lack thereof, between JG's AI/ML division and Craig Federighi's software engineering group. Two divisions that I had no idea, frankly, were so closely linked. And yet, despite these two massive parts of Apple supposedly working together, you've got very different leadership styles. JG is reportedly super nice and is universally well-liked, but lacks decisiveness and isn't really seen as an effective operator. Contrast that with Federighi, who's generally known for getting stuff done. Maybe isn't always the most popular guy in the room, but he's recognized by just about everybody to be competent and effective. Under JG and his operational head, Robbie Walker, Siri's development reportedly crawled along. From 2018, the focus wasn't on ambitious leaps or taking risks, but instead focused on tiny incremental gains. We're talking 2 years of work, 2 years, just to drop the hey from Hey Siri. A change that I might personally argue isn't even a net positive half of the time. I swear I can say like avocado, and Siri's like, you called? No, I didn't. Walker is alleged to have poured extraordinary time and effort into reducing the amount of time that it took Siri to give an answer, but reportedly wasn't much focused on the quality of the answer. And I don't know about you, but a faster wrong answer is still wrong and less desired than a slower right answer. It allegedly got so bad that just last year, Walker dismissed an effort by his own team to use LLMs to give Siri more emotional sensitivity, like detecting if a user was in distress. Now, that actually sounds like a pretty cool feature to me, but Walker insisted that the team focus on shipping the existing projects they had instead. And you know what? Fair enough. That's decisive leadership. But here's where things went sideways. In a major, humongous organizational red flag, the team reportedly just ignored Walker's directive and continued working on it anyways. With whom? Collaborating with a separate division within Federighi's group. Oh my gosh. Oh, things got so bad that JG's AI/ML team earned themselves an unflattering nickname amongst those under Federighi: Aimless. Oh man. This inability to execute, it wasn't just internal, it affected other projects. Apple started a project codenamed Link, designed to let voice commands control apps and complete tasks on the Vision Pro, eventually aiming for web navigation, window resizing, and more, all by voice. Pretty cool. But almost all of these features got dropped for the Vision Pro, reportedly because the Siri team just didn't know how to deliver them. But that's nothing. This is where it gets insano, because things escalated to the point of basically having dueling divisions within the same company. Federighi, apparently losing confidence in JG's group, established his own machine learning team within the software engineering group, even though that was outside of his official purview, calling it Intelligent Systems. He then reportedly started hiring hundreds of AI and ML engineers, creating a parallel AI development track inside of Apple. This points to a profound profound dysfunction and a serious lack of confidence, especially since both Federighi and JG report directly to Tim Cook, a CEO famous for wanting his executives to just resolve problems themselves, not to bring them to him. And then, and then came the LLM explosion. Remember how ChatGPT burst onto the scene in late 2022? Well, JG reportedly dismissed these early models thinking they wouldn't catch on or offer significant user value. Whoops. His focus remains squarely on fixing Siri, mainly through better training data and web scraping. Now, when Apple finally did decide to jump into the LLM game, nearly a year late, by the way, the initial push was to use Apple's own in-house models, benchmarking against the competition, but not using anything open source, which isn't that common. This industry kind of builds on each other's stuff. They publish. It's not traditional software engineering, okay? Apple developed a cloud model dubbed Mighty Mouse and then a local model called Minnie Mouse, but months down the line, both models still weren't even matching up to OpenAI's initial public release performance. And to make matters worse, well, leadership reportedly decided to just flip-flop, start the whole thing over, and build a single large model for everything, only to then backtrack again just a few months later to multiple models. These constant major changes allegedly drove frustrated engineers and staff right out the door, a dozen of whom contributed to the information's reporting. Years of mistrust and culture clashes festered between JG's and Federighi's teams. Allegedly, the AI/ML folks enjoyed higher pay, quicker promotions, longer vacations, and shorter days, creating a perception of inequity compared to, well, the software engineering teams, who busted their tails and were believing themselves to be more effectual anyways. It got so bad that one of JG's deputies supposedly asked engineers to meticulously document a joint project they were working on with Federighi's team, specifically so that the software engineering group couldn't scapegoat the AI/ML team if it failed. Oh my gosh, that kind of friction obviously is going to hamper collaboration. And this brings us to the absolute bombshell from the report, the thing that ties us back to the lawsuit mentioned at the start, the WWDC 2024 demos. The report alleges that all of the impressive Apple Intelligence stuff, the demos showing deep personal context awareness and featured heavily in the ads that followed, that all of them were essentially fictitious. They weren't running on real working internal devices. And even more damning, the demos allegedly came as a complete surprise to those on the Siri team. People developing them that had actually never seen them in a working version, especially not what was shown on stage. Oh my gosh. If true, this is a massive, massive betrayal of Apple's long-standing policy to only publicly demo features that are actually working internally. So where does that leave us now? Well, Apple has reportedly stripped Siri's oversight from JG and Robbie Walker. Sounds like it needed to happen a long time ago. The new person in charge is Mike Rockwell, a 10-year Apple veteran primarily known for leading the Vision Pro project from start to finish. Now, say what you will about the Vision Pro's price or target market, but the product itself is generally seen as highly polished and is iterating quickly. Plus, Rockwell is reportedly known for having been a longtime critic of Siri internally. Especially makes sense now, given the whole voice failed project thing we talked about earlier. And honestly, I think this is great because for the longest time, I wasn't sure anybody inside of Apple truly grasped how bad Siri had become. But it sounds like Rockwell did, and many of his key lieutenants from the Vision Pro team are apparently moving over to the Siri project with him, and the first few weeks have already supposedly been filled with massive shakeups. Now, one slight worry that I have is that Rockwell is reportedly still in charge of Vision OS as well, which makes me wonder if that platform might start to languish a bit, especially with rumors of a cheaper model starting to fade. But hopefully this rights the ship, man. Encouragingly, Federighi is still alleged to be closely involved and has reportedly instructed engineers to do whatever it takes to build the best AI features, even if that means using open source models from other companies instead of sticking solely to Apple's own tech, which is a significant departure from past strategy. But frankly, man, this whole saga makes me even more skeptical than I already was about Apple's agility and capacity to innovate in today's current landscape, at least with current leadership. This level of organizational chaos, the infighting, the alleged deception, this sounds more like the stories we used to hear coming out of Microsoft or Google, not Apple. And while I've long maintained that Tim Cook is one of the best operational CEOs in tech history, he isn't and never has been a product visionary in the vein of Jobs. And that's been fine for years because Apple has had other visionaries within the ranks. But without a decisive leader at the top who has the ability to cut through dysfunction and remove underperformers without mercy, I'm genuinely skeptical of the company's ability to continue being the best going forward. And let's be clear, best has always been Apple's thing. Never first to market, often lagging slightly behind, but delivering an incredibly polished, superior experience. But this whole AI situation, this feels different. This is the first time that I can recall where Apple is not only not first, but arguably is delivering the worst experience amongst its peers. And for that, for the first time, I'm genuinely worried that the incredible legacy that Steve Jobs left behind could end up being tarnished beyond repair. Please give me a like if you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, well, that other button seems to work okay too, but most importantly, leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts? Is this AI stuff all hubbub, or is Apple really blowing it? Thank you so much for watching, and most importantly, and as always, stay snazzy.